So, picture this. It's November 18th, 2025. You go to use your phone, but something is just off. It feels like a huge piece of the internet has completely disappeared. And for a few hours, it kind of did. Today, we're going to break down exactly what caused that massive outage, why it happened, and what it tells us about the, well, fragile foundation of our super-connected world.
Does that sound familiar? You went to check your feed on X, or maybe ask ChatGPT a quick question, or even just put on some music with Spotify, and you got nothing. Yeah, you were definitely not alone. It was this weird, shared global moment of digital silence. And as we're about to see, it all pointed back to one single hidden weak spot.
And the scale of this thing was just staggering. We're not talking about just one type of service here. It was social media, cutting-edge AI, music streaming, huge online games. But you want to know the craziest part? Even some of the websites we all go to check if other websites are down, well, they were down too. That's how you know the problem was deep.
Okay, so what did this whole digital meltdown actually look like for the average person just trying to browse the web? Well, it wasn't always a blank screen. For a lot of people, it was a bunch of confusing error messages that all hinted at a much bigger problem happening behind the scenes.
A lot of you probably saw 500 internal server error. That's basically the internet's generic way of saying, hey, it's not you, it's me. Some people got this really weird request to unblock a Cloudflare address, which basically meant the security gate that's supposed to protect the website was itself broken. The bottom line here is that all these different errors were just symptoms of the same massive underlying issue.
So that brings us to the heart of the mystery. How on earth could so many completely unrelated services all fail at the exact same time? Well, it's because they weren't as unrelated as they seemed. They all depended on one company, a hidden giant of the internet.
And that giant is Cloudflare. Now, you might not have heard of them directly, but I guarantee you use their services every single day. Think of Cloudflare as the internet's traffic cop and security guard, all rolled into one. They sit in between you and most of the websites you visit, making sure everything is fast, safe, and protected from hackers and bots.
And to really understand just how massive they are, look at this number, roughly 20%. That's the share of all web traffic on the entire internet that passes through Cloudflare's network. 1/5 of everything. So you can see why, when a company that big has a problem, it becomes everyone's problem.
So the immediate question on everyone's mind was, were they attacked? Was this some kind of huge coordinated cyber warfare? And, thankfully the answer was no. The reality was something way more subtle and honestly, in some ways, a lot more worrying. Cloudflare themselves were super quick to get this message out. They wanted to make it absolutely clear this was not the work of hackers. Their official statement said there was zero evidence of malicious activity. The problem was internal.
This is how it all went down. A tiny action that created this massive chain reaction. It started with a totally routine configuration change, something they probably do all the time. But this one change accidentally triggered a latent bug, a hidden flaw in their own software just waiting for the right moment. That bug crashed their bot mitigation service, the system that filters out all the bad guys. And because that service is so critical, its failure was like the first domino in a long line, taking down huge chunks of their network with it.
And all of this happened incredibly fast. At 11:20 Universal Time, their systems flagged a problem. Just 10 minutes later, people all over the world started seeing errors. It then took their engineers 3 frantic hours to figure out what happened, roll back that change, and get everything back online. 3 hours that felt like an eternity for a big part of the internet.
Now, this whole incident isn't just about one company having a really bad day at the office. It's a huge wake-up call. It forces us to talk about a much bigger, more fundamental issue with how the modern internet is actually built.
And it all boils down to this idea of centralization. See, on the left, you've got a centralized system. By routing everything through one main hub, like Cloudflare, you get amazing efficiency and speed. But it also creates a single point of failure. If that hub goes down, everything connected to it goes down. A decentralized system, on the other hand, is more complex, sure, but it's way more resilient. There's no single weak link that can take out the whole network.
So knowing that this kind of thing can and probably will happen again, what can you actually do about it? Let's put together a little internet first aid kit with a few tips for regular users and for folks who run their own websites.
All right, for all of us regular users, next time the internet feels broken, first thing to try is a hard refresh. That basically tells your browser to forget any old, broken data it might be stuck on. Second, just be patient. Even after a fix is in place, it can take a while to spread across the entire globe. And finally, try to check the company's official status page for real info, not just the chaos you'll see on social media.
Now, if you're someone who actually runs a website or an online business, this is a real gut check moment. You have to ask, do you have a plan for when your main provider goes down? Maybe it's time to look into having multiple providers for redundancy. And importantly, wait for the official post-mortem report to really understand what happened, and then be super transparent with your own users about what's going on.
And this brings us to the big final thought. We rely on the internet for practically everything, right? But this one outage showed us just how fragile that reliance really is. As we continue to trust a handful of giant companies with more and more of our digital lives, we really have to ask ourselves, are we building a digital house of cards? Are we trading resilience for efficiency, creating this incredible world that could all come crumbling down because of a single, simple mistake? It's definitely something to think about.